The Mind of a Dictator, exploring Hitler's psychological profile. What forces drive a man to commit some of history's greatest atrocities? Adolf Hitler's psychological state continues to be a controversial topic. By examining his possible mental health issues, we uncover how his inner struggles may have played a role in reshaping world history. Hitler's troubled childhood offers early glimpses into his fragile psyche. He experienced an authoritarian father and a strained family life, which may have cultivated deep-seated resentment and insecurity. Coupled with rejection from art schools, these formative years likely shaped his obsessive need for power and control. Historians and psychologists have proposed various mental conditions that afflicted Hitler. Narcissistic personality disorder is evident in his inflated self-worth and constant need for admiration. Some suggest paranoia triggered his distrust of others, leading to violent decisions. Could his actions also reflect untreated PTSD from World War I? Hitler's psychological issues were not isolated. They interacted dangerously with his ideology. His delusions of grandeur and perceived victimhood mobilized millions, sowing hatred and genocide. These traits blurred the lines between personal instability and the terrifying machinery of Nazi power, altering the course of human history. Understanding Hitler's psychological struggles deepens our grasp of how mental health and leadership intertwine. It challenges us to reflect on the consequences of unaddressed issues in positions of power. Share this lesson with fellow historians, because only by studying the past can we prevent history from repeating itself.
Deep in the heart of Nazi Germany, a secret obsession burned within the minds of Adolf Hitler and Heinrich Himmler. They sought an artifact of immense power, a relic steeped in legend and shrouded in mystery, the Holy Grail. This sacred object, said to have been used by Jesus at the Last Supper, held an irresistible allure for the Nazi leadership. Hitler, a man driven by a thirst for power and domination, believed the Grail possessed supernatural abilities. He envisioned it as a weapon, capable of granting his armies invincibility and crushing his enemies. Legend spoke of the Grail's power to heal the sick and even grant immortality, enticing prospects for a regime bent on world domination. Himmler, head of the SS and a key architect of the Holocaust, shared Hitler's fascination with the Grail. Steeped in the occult and obsessed with ancient Germanic mythology, Himmler saw the Grail as a symbol of Aryan supremacy. He believed it held the key to unlocking ancient knowledge and harnessing mystical forces that would ensure Nazi victory. Driven by these beliefs, Hitler and Himmler embarked on a quest for the Holy Grail. They poured resources and manpower into this secret mission, determined to find the relic and unleash its power upon the world. Little did they know, their pursuit would lead them down a dangerous path, fraught with intrigue, betrayal, and ultimately, failure. To spearhead their search for the Grail and other mystical artifacts, Himmler established the Ahnenerbe, a research institute dedicated to uncovering the history and origins of the Aryan race. This organization, however, was far from a legitimate academic institution. The Ahnenerbe attracted a motley crew of historians, archaeologists, and pseudoscientists, all united by their adherence to Nazi ideology and their belief in the occult. They scoured ancient texts, unearthed archaeological sites, and conducted bizarre experiments, all in pursuit of evidence to support their warped worldview. Under Himmler's direction, the Ahnenerbe became obsessed with myths and legends, particularly those that seemed to validate Nazi racial theories. They twisted history and fabricated evidence to fit their narrative, seeking to legitimize their claims of Aryan superiority and justify their plans for global domination. The Ahnenerbe's activities extended far beyond mere academic research. They plundered museums and libraries across occupied Europe, stealing artifacts and documents they believed held clues to the Grail's whereabouts. Their quest for occult power knew no bounds, fueled by a toxic mix of fanaticism and delusion. Among the Ahnenerbe's recruits was a young man named Otto Rahn, a medievalist and author with a deep fascination for the Cathars, a heretical Christian sect persecuted during the Middle Ages. Rahn's expertise in Cathar history and his belief that they possessed the Grail made him a valuable asset to the Nazis. What makes Rahn's story all the more intriguing is his background. He was gay, a fact hidden from his Nazi superiors, and most ironically, Jewish. This placed him in a precarious position, serving a regime that actively persecuted individuals like him. Despite the danger, Rahn threw himself into his work, traveling to southern France, the heartland of the Cathars, to search for clues to the Grail's location. He explored ancient castles, deciphered medieval texts, and delved into local folklore, piecing together what he believed to be the Grail's true nature. Rahn's research led him to believe that the Grail was not a physical cup, as commonly depicted, but rather a source of ancient knowledge, perhaps a stone or a set of tablets inscribed with mystical runes. This interpretation, however, clashed with the Nazis' idealized vision of the Grail as a Christian relic, forcing Rahn to tread carefully and tailor his findings to appease his superiors. Rahn's quest for the Grail initially centered around the ruins of Montségur, a Cathar stronghold that fell to the Inquisition. He believed the Cathars, facing defeat, had hidden the Grail within the mountain fortress, safeguarding it from their enemies. Driven by this belief, Rahn spent months exploring Montségur and its surrounding areas, meticulously documenting his findings and searching for any sign of the hidden relic. He ventured into treacherous caves, scaled sheer cliffs, and navigated labyrinthine tunnels, all in pursuit of his elusive prize. His search, however, extended beyond Montségur. Rahn's research led him to believe that the Grail might be hidden in Spain, specifically in the Benedictine monastery of Montserrat near Barcelona. This imposing mountaintop abbey, with its rich history and aura of mystery, seemed a fitting location for the Grail's hiding place. Rahn's theories intrigued Himmler, who saw Montserrat as a promising lead. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation between the Nazi regime and the guardians of a sacred relic. In 1940, at the height of World War II, Heinrich Himmler, the Reichsführer SS, embarked on a highly publicized visit to Spain. While, officially there to discuss the formation of a Spanish political police force, Himmler's true purpose lay elsewhere, the monastery of Montserrat and its rumored connection to the Holy Grail. The imposing figure of Himmler, flanked by SS guards, ascended the mountain to the abbey. He sought an audience with the monks, demanding access to their archives and any information they possessed regarding the Grail. A young monk, Andrea Rippel Nobel, received Himmler. Despite intense questioning, the monk remained steadfast, denying any knowledge of the Grail's presence at Montserrat. Whether this was the truth or perhaps a calculated act to protect a sacred relic from falling into Nazi hands remains a subject of debate to this day. Himmler, frustrated and empty-handed, departed Montserrat. The Grail, if it ever existed within the abbey's walls, remained elusive. The Nazi quest, for all its resources and ruthlessness, had failed to secure its prize. The Nazi expedition to Montserrat was not the only attempt to seize the Grail during this tumultuous period. The Spanish Civil War, raging from 1936 to 1939, had turned the country into a battleground for various factions, each with their own motives for seeking the Grail. British intelligence, aware of the Nazi interest in the Grail, dispatched their own agents to Spain, determined to prevent the relic from falling into enemy hands. These spies, operating in the shadows, followed leads, cultivated contacts, and sought to outmaneuver their Nazi counterparts. Meanwhile, Spanish revolutionaries, fighting against Franco's fascist forces, also saw value in the Grail, believing it could be a potent symbol to rally support for their cause. They too joined the hunt, adding another layer of complexity to the already treacherous game. Even an unassuming postwoman became embroiled in this web of intrigue. Details remain scarce, but historical accounts suggest she played a role in safeguarding the Grail, spiriting it away from danger and ensuring its survival amidst the chaos of war. The Spanish Civil War, with its backdrop of violence and uncertainty, provided fertile ground for this high-stakes treasure hunt. The Grail, once a symbol of faith and purity, became a pawn in a deadly game of espionage and political maneuvering. The legend of the Holy Grail has captivated imaginations for centuries, but separating historical fact from romanticized fiction proves a daunting task. What do scholars and the Church believe about the Grail's true nature and whereabouts? The Catholic Church recognizes a Chalcedony cup, housed in Valencia Cathedral since 1437, as a possible Holy Grail. This unassuming vessel, with its simple design and Hebrew inscriptions, stands in stark contrast to the elaborate descriptions found in Arthurian legends. Scholars, however, remain divided on the Grail's authenticity and significance. Some believe it to be a literary invention, a symbol of spiritual purity and enlightenment, rather than a physical object. Others point to historical evidence suggesting the Grail's existence, potentially as a simple cup or plate used by Jesus, imbued with significance through its association with the Last Supper. The true nature of the Holy Grail, much like the relic itself, remains shrouded in mystery. Whether a physical object or a symbolic representation of faith, its power to inspire and intrigue endures. The story of Hitler's quest for the Holy Grail continues to fascinate us, even decades after the fall of the Third Reich. Why does this tale of obsession, intrigue, and the pursuit of a mythical object still resonate with such power? Perhaps it is the inherent human fascination with the unknown, the allure of hidden knowledge and ancient mysteries. The Grail, as a symbol of spiritual enlightenment and ultimate truth, speaks to our deepest desires for meaning and purpose. The story also offers a glimpse into the dark side of human nature, the lengths to which individuals will go to attain power and control. The Nazi obsession with the Grail, fueled by their twisted ideology and thirst for domination, serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition. Moreover, the story's setting amidst the turmoil of World War II and the Spanish Civil War adds another layer of intrigue. The backdrop of espionage, betrayal, and violence creates a sense of urgency and danger, heightening the stakes and drawing us deeper into the narrative. In the end, the enduring allure of the Holy Grail lies in its ability to tap into our collective imagination, to transport us to a world of mystery and adventure where history and legend collide. The Nazi quest for the Holy Grail, while ultimately unsuccessful, stands as a testament to the enduring power of myth and the human fascination with the unknown. It reminds us that history is often stranger than fiction, and that even the most outlandish tales can contain kernels of truth. The story also serves as a cautionary reminder of the dangers of extremism and the seductive allure of power. The Nazi obsession with the Grail, fueled by their warped ideology, ultimately led them down a path of destruction and ruin. As we delve into the past, seeking to unravel the mysteries of the Holy Grail, we are reminded that some secrets may never be fully revealed. Yet, it is in the pursuit of these elusive truths that we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The Holy Grail, whether a physical object or a symbolic representation of our deepest desires, continues to inspire and intrigue, reminding us that the search for meaning and purpose is an essential part of the human experience.
In the annals of history, few names evoke such immediate revulsion and horror as Josef Mengele. Born in 1911, Mengele was a German physician who, seduced by the Nazi ideology of racial purity, would become the embodiment of evil during his time at Auschwitz-Birkenau. Arriving at the notorious death camp in 1943, Mengele quickly gained notoriety, his name whispered in hushed tones, a harbinger of suffering and despair. He was the Angel of Death, a man who held the power of life and death over hundreds of thousands of innocent souls. Mengele's background was deceptively ordinary. He studied anthropology and medicine, excelling in his academic pursuits. However, his intellect became twisted, his medical expertise a tool for inflicting unimaginable pain and suffering. He embraced the Nazi ideology with fervor, believing in the perverse notion of Aryan supremacy and the need to eliminate those deemed racially inferior. Driven by this toxic ideology, Mengele saw Auschwitz as a living laboratory, a place where he could conduct his horrific experiments on human beings with impunity. He was particularly fascinated by twins, believing that they held the key to unlocking the secrets of heredity and, by extension, the means to increase the birth rate of the Aryan race. His obsession with twins, coupled with his utter disregard for human life, would lead to some of the most horrific crimes committed within the already horrific confines of Auschwitz. The arrival of transports at Auschwitz was always a chaotic and terrifying affair. Families torn from their homes and herded like cattle were met with the deafening shouts of SS guards and the barking of trained dogs. It was here, Amidst the pushing and shoving, the fear and uncertainty that Mengele would make his selections. With a flick of his wrist, a casual point of his cane, he would decide the fate of thousands. The elderly, the infirm, young children and pregnant women were almost always sent to their deaths in the gas chambers. Able-bodied men and women were deemed fit for slave labor, at least for a time. But for those who caught Mengele's eye, twins, dwarfs, anyone with a physical anomaly, a different fate awaited. Mengele would often greet the newly arrived prisoners with a disarming smile, asking after their well-being. He was particularly interested in twins, promising them better food and living conditions if they volunteered for his medical research. For many, especially children, the promise of a kind word and a friendly face was enough to overcome their fear, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. The selection process was a cruel game, a macabre lottery where the prize was often a slow and agonizing death. Those deemed worthy of Mengele's attention were spared the immediate horrors of the gas chambers, but were condemned to a different kind of hell, one where they would become nothing more than human guinea pigs. The full extent of Mengele's crimes at Auschwitz may never be fully known. He kept meticulous records of his experiments, but many of these documents were destroyed by the Nazis in the waning days of the war, an attempt to cover up the evidence of their barbarity. However, the testimonies of survivors and the few remaining fragments of evidence paint a horrifying picture of Mengele's depravity. Mengele's experiments were often conducted without anesthesia, the screams of his victims echoing through the halls of his makeshift laboratory. He was obsessed with unlocking the secrets of genetics, believing that he could artificially manipulate human traits to create a master race. Twins were subjected to excruciating pain, their bodies poked, prodded and mutilated in the name of science. He would inject dyes into their eyes, attempting to change their color. He would perform blood transfusions between twins, often with fatal results. Amputations and organ removals were commonplace, all carried out without any regard for the suffering he inflicted. If one twin died, the other was often killed and their bodies dissected side by side, a gruesome comparison study in the name of twisted science. Mengele's experiments were not limited to twins. He was also fascinated by those with dwarfism, subjecting them to humiliating examinations and painful procedures. He collected blood samples, measured limbs, and even extracted bone marrow, all in a futile attempt to prove his warped theories about racial superiority. As the Allied forces closed in on Auschwitz in early 1945, Mengele fled the camp, disappearing into the chaos of wartime Europe. He evaded capture, eventually escaping to South America, where he lived for decades under assumed names. Despite international efforts to track him down, he died in Brazil in 1979, his true identity only confirmed several years later. Mengele's escape from justice left a bitter taste in the mouths of his victims and their families. They had endured unimaginable horrors, only to see their tormentor live out his days in relative comfort. The fact that he was never held accountable for his crimes compounded their pain and suffering. The legacy of Mengele's crimes continues to haunt the world. His name is synonymous with medical experimentation and the horrors of the Holocaust. The survivors of his experiments still bear the physical and psychological scars of their ordeal, a constant reminder of the depravity of which humanity is capable. It is our duty to remember the victims of Mengele's experiments and to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. We must learn from the dark chapters of our past and strive to create a world where the dignity of every human being is respected and protected. Only then can we truly say that we have learned the lessons of the Holocaust. A thirst for power. The Nazis and their obsession with technology. The Nazis craved power. They believed in their own superiority and sought to dominate the world. Technology became a tool to achieve their twisted goals. The Nazis poured resources into research and development, pushing the boundaries of science and engineering. Their ambition was to create weapons and technologies that would give them an undeniable advantage in war. This single-minded pursuit of technological superiority led to both remarkable breakthroughs and horrifying atrocities. The Nazis were willing to exploit anyone and anything to further their agenda. They forced scientists to work for them, using their intellect for evil purposes. Their obsession with technology was a double-edged sword leading to both progress and destruction on an unprecedented scale. The reigning terror, the V-2 rocket. The V-2 rocket stands as a chilling symbol of Nazi technological might. This ballistic missile, unlike anything the world had ever seen, was capable of traveling vast distances at supersonic speeds. The V-2 instilled fear in the hearts of enemy populations, raining down destruction from the skies. Developed in secrecy, the V-2 was fueled by liquid oxygen and alcohol, propelling a deadly payload over 200 miles. This revolutionary weapon showcased the terrifying potential of rocket technology. While its military impact was limited due to its inaccuracy and logistical challenges, the V-2 left an indelible mark on warfare. Breaking the code, the Enigma machine and the battle of wits. War is not always won on the battlefield. Sometimes the most decisive battles are fought in the shadows, in the realm of intelligence and code breaking. The Enigma machine, a sophisticated encryption device used by the German military, presented a formidable challenge to the Allies. The Enigma's complex system of rotors and settings made its messages incredibly difficult to decipher. However, a team of brilliant mathematicians and code breakers at Bletchley Park, England, toiled tirelessly to break the Enigma code. Their success in cracking the Enigma proved instrumental in turning the tide of the war. Age of the Jets, a new era of warfare. The roar of jet engines marked the dawn of a new era in aviation. The Nazis, always striving for technological superiority, pioneered the development of jet-powered aircraft. These aircraft, capable of reaching incredible speeds, promised to revolutionize aerial warfare. The Messerschmitt Me 262, the world's first operational jet fighter, showcased the potential of jet technology. While hampered by production delays and strategic blunders, the Me 262 gave a glimpse of the future of air combat. Section 5, Medical Misery, the dark side of Nazi science. The Nazi regime's thirst for knowledge knew no ethical boundaries. Under the guise of scientific advancement, Nazi doctors conducted horrific experiments on prisoners in concentration camps. These experiments, often resulting in unimaginable suffering and death, were a grotesque perversion of science. Driven by twisted ideologies and a complete disregard for human life, Nazi doctors subjected innocent victims to torture in the name of research. These atrocities serve as a chilling reminder of the potential for science to be corrupted when ethical considerations are abandoned. Section 6, the technological legacy from war machines to everyday innovations. The technological innovations of World War II, while born from conflict, had a profound impact on the post-war world. Many technologies developed for military purposes found new life in civilian applications. The development of radar, for example, revolutionized air travel and weather forecasting. Similarly, advances in computing, fueled by the need to break enemy codes and calculate ballistic trajectories, paved the way for the digital age. The war accelerated technological progress, leaving an undeniable mark on the modern world. Section 7, the moral dilemma, science, technology, and the question of responsibility. The Nazi regime's exploitation of science and technology serves as a stark warning about the dual-use nature of knowledge. Scientific discoveries and technological advancements can be used for good or evil. The development of nuclear weapons, for example, highlights the profound moral dilemmas posed by scientific progress. The question of who controls technology and for what purpose remains a pressing concern in the 21st century. As technology continues to advance at an unprecedented rate, it is essential to consider the ethical implications of scientific discoveries. Section 8. Lessons from history. The enduring importance of ethical considerations. The horrors of World War II, particularly the atrocities committed by the Nazi regime, underscore the importance of ethical considerations in science and technology. The pursuit of knowledge should never come at the cost of human suffering. Scientists, engineers, and policymakers have a responsibility to ensure that technological advancements are used for the betterment of humanity, not for destruction or oppression. Education. Open dialogue and international cooperation are essential to prevent the misuse of science and technology. Section 9, Conclusion, a legacy of innovation and a warning for the future. The Nazi regime's pursuit of technological dominance left an indelible mark on history. While some of their innovations paved the way for post-war progress, the dark side of their scientific endeavors serves as a chilling reminder of the potential for technology to be used for evil. The lessons learned from this dark chapter in human history should guide us as we navigate the complex relationship between science, technology, and society. By embracing ethical considerations, fostering international cooperation, and promoting responsible innovation, we can strive to harness the power of technology for the betterment of humanity.
Horrors of the Nazi gas chambers. Picture this: thousands of men, women, and children forced into cold, concrete rooms. They are told they're simply going for a shower. Moments later, the heavy metal doors slam shut, and the air fills with deadly gas. This is not fiction. This was the horrifying reality of Nazi gas chambers. The Nazi regime weaponized deception to carry out systematic exterminations. Victims were stripped of not just dignity, but of life itself in these terrifying chambers. Families were torn apart, hope extinguished. What led humanity to this abyss? Let us step into this painful past to understand the true cost of cruelty. The creation of gas chambers was the horrifying apex of industrialized mass murder. At camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor, Nazis perfected a chillingly efficient process to eradicate lives. Zyklon B pellets, developed for pest control, became the weapon for genocide, suffocating entire rooms of innocent people within minutes. At its core, these chambers symbolize the horrifying consequences of a state driven by unchecked hate and racist ideologies. Each murder wasn't just a statistic. It was a father, a mother, a child, an individual with dreams, fears, and a right to live. Their stories force us to confront this unimaginable tragedy. The shadows of history often appear silent, but through survivors, its echoes scream to be heard. People like Primo Levi and Olga Lengyel bore witness to these horrors so the world would never forget. Their painful memories recount the shock, fear, and devastation of those trapped in the chambers. Levi described the gas chambers as a descent into hell, while Lengyel recounted the numbing realization of mass murders disguised as routine operations. Their words, though agonizing, hold the power to educate and remind us of our shared responsibility to uphold humanity in the face of evil. The Holocaust didn't start with gas chambers. It began with words, stereotypes, and propaganda. Nazis rebranded hate as patriotism, turning neighbors into enemies. Societal indifference fueled their rise, making genocide possible. Small acts of prejudice grew into policies, then into an unthinkable campaign of extermination. This history bears a pressing lesson. Silence and apathy can fuel destruction. The Nazi gas chambers remind us that tolerance, vigilance, and standing up against discrimination are not optional. They're necessary to prevent such catastrophic lapses in humanity from ever happening again. The ruins of Nazi gas chambers sit as silent witnesses to the Holocaust, worn by time but unbroken in their harrowing message. They remind us that we must protect history's lessons with unwavering commitment. Forgetting risks repeating. Remembering means ensuring that such evil is never allowed power again. We have an obligation to share these stories, educate the next generation, and challenge prejudice wherever we find it. Each of us has a role to play in defending human rights. Stand as an advocate for equality. Let history's pain move you to foster empathy, understanding, and active resistance to hatred.
The idea of an Aryan race is a dangerous myth. It's a fabricated concept with no scientific basis. This myth originated in the 19th century. European scholars twisted linguistic and cultural similarities into a false narrative of racial superiority. They claimed a distinct Aryan branch of the Indo-European language family. This supposed Aryan race was associated with desirable traits. These included intelligence, creativity, and physical prowess. This dangerous ideology laid the groundwork for future atrocities. The Nazis infamously embraced this myth. They used it to justify their horrific crimes during World War II. The Holocaust stands as a chilling reminder of the devastating consequences of such ideologies. Millions were murdered based on their supposed racial inferiority. This dark chapter in history highlights the urgent need to confront and dismantle these harmful beliefs. Despite its debunking by science and its horrific consequences, the myth of the Aryan race persists. It continues to fuel extremist groups and nationalist agendas around the world. Understanding its historical roots and contemporary manifestations is crucial. We must actively challenge and dismantle this dangerous ideology. Only then can we build a future free from its toxic influence. Nestled in Central Asia, Tajikistan offers a compelling case study in the appropriation of Aryan identity. The Tajik government has increasingly promoted the notion of Tajiks as direct descendants of ancient Aryan tribes. This narrative serves multiple purposes, both internal and external. It seeks to solidify a distinct Tajik identity, particularly in the face of historical tensions with neighboring Uzbekistan. This emphasis on Aryan heritage manifests in various ways. There's a strong focus on promoting Iranian culture and the Persian language, and this includes renaming streets and institutions to erase Russian influences. This cultural revival aims to connect modern Tajiks with a glorious pre-Islamic past. It's a way of reclaiming a sense of pride and historical significance. However, this narrative is not without its complexities and controversies. The assertion of a singular Aryan identity ignores the region's rich tapestry of cultures and ethnicities. It also fuels tensions with other groups, such as the Pamiri people within Tajikistan itself. These groups also lay claim to Aryan descent and maintain distinct cultural identities. The Aryan Brotherhood, a notorious white supremacist prison gang, presents a starkly different manifestation of the Aryan myth. Originating in the brutal confines of the California prison system, the AB appropriates the symbol of the swastika and promotes a doctrine of white supremacy. However, their ideology is often a thin veneer for a deeply entrenched criminal enterprise. The AB is notorious for its brutal violence and strict code of conduct. Blood in, blood out is their chilling motto. This signifies the violent nature of both initiation and lifelong commitment. Despite their professed belief in racial purity, their criminal activities tell a different story. The AB engages in large-scale drug trafficking. Their customers come from all racial backgrounds. This blatant hypocrisy underscores the cynical opportunism at the heart of their organization. The Aryan Brotherhood's enduring presence within the prison system and beyond poses a significant challenge to law enforcement agencies. Despite numerous crackdowns and high-profile convictions, the gang continues to exert influence both inside and outside prison walls. Their story serves as a stark reminder of the enduring allure and adaptability of extremist ideologies, particularly when intertwined with organized crime. The concept of racial purity, often intertwined with the Aryan myth, has historically served as a dangerous tool for justifying oppression and discrimination. Nazi Germany stands as a chilling example of the horrific consequences of such beliefs taken to their extreme. The Nazis used the pseudoscience of racial hygiene to justify the systematic persecution and murder of millions. The echoes of this dark chapter in history can still be felt today. The rise of nationalist and far-right movements around the world underscores the need for vigilance against these dangerous ideologies. From restrictions on reproductive rights to discriminatory immigration policies, the pursuit of racial purity often manifests in insidious ways. The fight against these ideologies requires a multifaceted approach. Education plays a crucial role in dismantling the myths and prejudices that fuel them. We must also be vigilant in challenging hate speech and discrimination wherever it arises. Ultimately, creating a more just and equitable society requires a collective commitment to upholding the principles of equality, diversity, and human rights. World War II, a conflict of unprecedented scale and ferocity, left an indelible scar on humanity. From 1939 to 1945, The world bore witness to a conflict that engulfed entire continents, leaving millions dead and countless others grappling with the physical and psychological wounds of war. The war's insatiable appetite for destruction knew no bounds, reducing cities to rubble and shattering the lives of ordinary people caught in its crossfire. Amidst the chaos and carnage, a darker chapter unfolded, one marked by unspeakable acts of cruelty and barbarism. Both Axis and Allied forces, driven by ideologies of hate, vengeance, or wartime necessity, committed acts that transgressed the very principles of humanity. These crimes, often hidden from public view during the war, would cast a long shadow over the decades to come, forcing the world to confront the darkest aspects of human nature. The sheer scale of the atrocities committed during World War II is staggering. From the systematic extermination of Jews in Nazi-occupied Europe to the brutal mistreatment of prisoners of war in the Pacific Theater, the war witnessed a horrifying disregard for human life. These acts of violence were not merely the result of battlefield frenzy, but often meticulously planned and executed as part of broader campaigns of terror and subjugation. Understanding the crimes of World War II is not about apportioning blame or judging the past through the lens of the present. It is about acknowledging the depths of human depravity, learning from the mistakes of history, and ensuring that such atrocities are never repeated. The echoes of these crimes continue to resonate today, reminding us of the fragility of peace and the importance of vigilance in safeguarding human rights and dignity for all. The atrocities perpetrated by Nazi Germany, particularly against Jews, remain seared into the collective memory of humanity. The Holocaust, a systematic and state-sponsored genocide, resulted in the extermination of approximately 6 million Jews who were deemed enemies of the Nazi state. From the horrors of the death camps, where innocent men, women and children were murdered in gas chambers and mass shootings, to the Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads that terrorized Eastern Europe, Nazi Germany's crimes stand as a chilling testament to the dangers of unchecked hatred and totalitarian ideology. Beyond the Holocaust, Nazi Germany's crimes extended to other groups deemed undesirable by the regime. Roma and Sinti people, homosexuals, the disabled and political opponents were also subjected to persecution, imprisonment and mass murder. The T4 program, for example, aimed to systematically eliminate individuals with physical and mental disabilities deemed a burden on the Aryan race. These victims, often forgotten in the shadow of the Holocaust, serve as a stark reminder of the Nazis' chillingly comprehensive vision of racial hygiene. Imperial Japan, driven by its own imperialist ambitions and a sense of racial superiority, also committed unspeakable atrocities during the war. The Nanjing Massacre, a 6-week rampage of murder, rape and looting by Japanese troops in the Chinese city of Nanjing, stands as one of the most horrific episodes of the conflict. Estimates of the death toll range from hundreds of thousands to as many as 300,000, with countless women subjected to sexual violence. Japanese atrocities extended far beyond Nanjing, encompassing a vast swathe of Asia. The use of forced labor, often under brutal conditions, resulted in the deaths of millions of civilians across Southeast Asia. Unit 731, a secret Japanese biological and chemical warfare research unit, conducted horrific experiments on prisoners of war and civilians, including vivisections and deliberate infections with deadly diseases. These experiments, often resulting in excruciating deaths, were shrouded in secrecy and only came to light after the war. While the atrocities committed by the Axis powers rightly occupy a central place in our understanding of World War II's dark legacy, it's crucial to acknowledge that the Allied forces were not without blemish. While fighting a just war against tyranny, Allied forces also engaged in acts that violated international law and resulted in the suffering of innocent civilians. The Allied bombing campaigns, particularly the firebombing of German and Japanese cities, resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians and remain a subject of moral debate to this day. The forced displacement of ethnic Germans from Eastern Europe after the war, while justified by some as retribution for Nazi crimes, resulted in widespread suffering and loss of life. The expulsion of millions of Germans from their homes, often under brutal conditions, serves as a reminder that even in victory, the line between justice and vengeance can be blurred. The Soviet Union, under the rule of Joseph Stalin, committed its own share of atrocities during and after the war. The Katyn Forest massacre, in which thousands of Polish officers and intellectuals were executed by the Soviet secret police, remains a chilling example of Soviet brutality. The Red Army's advance through Eastern Europe was often accompanied by widespread rape and looting, leaving a trail of trauma and resentment in its wake. Acknowledging these transgressions is not about equating the actions of the Allies with the systematic horrors of the Holocaust or other Axis crimes. It is about recognizing that war, even when fought for a just cause, can corrupt even the most noble of intentions. It is about acknowledging the complexities of history and ensuring that our understanding of the past is nuanced and complete. In the aftermath of World War II, the international community grappled with the enormity of the crimes that had been committed. The Nuremberg trials, held in Germany from 1945 to 1949, marked a watershed moment in the pursuit of international justice. For the first time, high-ranking political and military leaders were held accountable for war crimes, crimes against peace, and crimes against humanity. The trials, while imperfect, established the principle that individuals, regardless of their position, are responsible for their actions, and that impunity for such crimes would no longer be tolerated. The Tokyo trials, held from 1946 to 1948, sought to bring to justice those responsible for Japanese war crimes. While the trials resulted in the conviction of several high-ranking Japanese officials, including Prime Minister Hideki Tojo, critics argue that they failed to fully address the scope of Japanese atrocities, particularly those committed by Emperor Hirohito, who was granted immunity from prosecution. The legacy of World War II's crimes continues to shape the world today. The Holocaust, in particular, serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of anti-Semitism, racism, and intolerance. International Holocaust Remembrance Day, observed annually on January 27, serves as a solemn occasion to remember the victims and to reaffirm our commitment to preventing future genocides. The crimes of World War II also underscore the importance of historical memory and education. By remembering the victims, confronting the perpetrators, and understanding the historical context in which these atrocities occurred, we can learn from the mistakes of the past and work to create a more just and peaceful future. The words "never again" must be more than just a slogan. They must be a call to action, a commitment to vigilance, and a recognition that the fight for human rights and dignity is an ongoing struggle that demands our unwavering attention and resolve.
The V3 Nazi supergun, a terrifying weapon that almost was. Imagine a gun so powerful it could strike London from France without ever moving an inch. During World War II, the Nazis designed the V3 supergun to do just that, a groundbreaking weapon meant to tilt the war in their favor. Dubbed the high-pressure pump gun, this artillery piece incorporated revolutionary technology to achieve unmatched range. But despite its genius, the project faced insurmountable technical failures and relentless Allied bombings that halted its progress. The V3 stands as a reminder of how desperation fuels innovation during war. Its story sheds light on the lengths nations go to change the tide of conflict. Unearth more shocking military marvels by following us and diving deeper into the untold stories of warfare.